What is going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another Beta Memoirs. And today I don't have a watch list for you guys, but I wanted to do more of a state of the market kind of situation, because if you've been following any of my videos at all, you know that we do have a Mr. Powell tomorrow. The FOMC meetings have been going on starting today into tomorrow. Essentially closing out tomorrow. So we'll get the report at 2 tomorrow p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then we'll be followed up by Powell at 2:30 Eastern Standard Time. So something I've been talking about as far as the markets, we did have a sell-off this morning. It was expected. This is typically what happens during these meetings as of late. Again, a lot of these meetings don't hold as much weight, but considering the pandemic and inflation concerns and all that stuff, these meetings hold a lot more weight than they typically do. So being said, that is what is going on. So tomorrow, it's a lot of people may be thinking that we're going to rip. We have pulled up. A lot of things have gone pretty hot. I'm looking for a pretty good pullback tomorrow. I actually wouldn't be surprised if we just pull back down into this range tomorrow, hit off the 200 on SPY tomorrow. And so that's what I'm looking off. The market actually just closed about 10 minutes ago. So that's what I am looking at tomorrow, is open up down here at the 423 mark. A lot of tech that was hot yesterday kind of really cooled off today. You had your one-offs, your Airbnbs and your shop that did quite well today. But most other big tech got crushed today. Tesla really got crushed today. There's a couple other ones. Apple, I believe, actually didn't do too bad. But just understand that tomorrow is going to be an important day. And I wouldn't actually be surprised, to be honest, if I'm thinking Powell is not going to change it. But again, he could come up with something new. There's a lot of information out there as far as inflation. I know previously, he kind of just ignored everything. That Janet Yellen came out and started talking about inflation, trying to overstep Powell. That kind of led to a lot of different sell-offs a couple weeks back. But now it's strictly coming from Powell. And he's always reiterated he isn't changing anything. A lot of people have been upset with that, but the market seems to be doing good. Talking about something I haven't really talked about, but commodities and banks have really been taking a major hit. I know a lot of people are talking about trying to catch that run up. And that's something I want to bring up here. I mean, even if you look at something like your JPM, it's been selling off really bad lately. And normally, if there is inflation, right, banks go run. They run quite a bit. So if you look back, an October-ish time frame, inflation concerns, right? That point to the highest point here, it's already a 75% run. That's a huge run for banks in general. So being said, some of that could be recovery, but for the most part, banks were pretty flat until inflation concerns around October, and then we started really pushing up. Now we're starting to sell off a lot of the commodities in itself, even metals. You want to look at metals is another one. Another big thing to look at is you look back in March of last year, it ran a solid, even for GLD, 13% on gold. Ran really solid. That's not saying that it won't bounce back. But being said, this is something I typically talk about when I talk about any kind of movement on, and the reason why I use the 20 and the 50 and why it's been pretty accurate for the most part. Typically, when we get a break below the 20, we'll get a bounce off the 50, retest the 20, and then typically we'll break that 50 and then come close, if not hit that 200 at that point before we get a reversal. So being said, even commodities, a lot of them have been, I know lumber's even been taking a major hit lately. So a lot of people are saying inflation is not dead. It could not be, but from what I'm seeing, it looks like banks, commodities are taking a hit. And the past couple of days, we've seen big tech start taking charge again, which is something we haven't seen in about 2 months or so, are growth companies in itself. So being said, maybe we're kind of seeing the hand already as into what to expect tomorrow. I myself am all cash. I liquidated all my positions because a lot of things, if it wasn't big tech today, it's pretty much selling off for the most part, aside from Tesla. Tesla just completely tanked today. But being said, your Amazons, your Shopify, your Facebooks, Apples, they all did pretty well for the most part. There was a little bit of selling, but for the most part, they held their ground throughout the day. And then a lot of them pushed up towards the end of the day. So even your Amazon pushed up towards the end of the day. Everything pushed right back into range. Bitcoin, though, again, another possible inflation indicator. We had a massive sell-off towards the end of the day. It looks like we were going back to trying to push back up, at least attempt to try to go back to the 50, right? We've been trying to break this range for a minute. But we got rejected here and then sold off again. Again, keep in range, even on Bitcoin, if you want to use it as an inflation indicator. But gold, again, gold's been getting slammed just like commodities. I was even looking at something to keep in mind because I wanted to get into copper. I heard about copper probably about a month ago, and something I was trying to determine if I was going to get into. And even copper has taken a major hit with the chip shortage and everything. Copper took a major hit, but if you want to look back, right, back in March of last year, right, inflation concerns, copper, massive run, 584%, massive run. To expect that to keep going, I think is out of the question at this point. I think. What they call it, transitory inflation, is really what's going on. It's just temporary inflation, supply and demand. Again, X, we've seen a massive sell-off today. It looks like a good bounce. But steel, I think, is going to slow down as well. Steel has had a major move too, if you look at steel. And so, yeah, there's another 262%. So, I mean, there's been already big moves. Not saying that it can't keep going. But I believe even Cathie Wood has talked about it being transitory inflation, possibly looking at deflation and the different types of deflation at that point, but which is kind of going along with what Cathie Wood has been talking about this whole time, about how this rotation of transitory inflation is going to happen. Then we get into the different types of deflation. There's good and bad deflation, but ultimately understand that it's going to rotate back into growth. And we've started seeing that over the past couple of days. Which leads me to believe that if nothing changes tomorrow, we can go back to SPY here. Actually, let's take a look at QQQ. Yeah, QQQ's got, I mean, everything has been running really hot. That's one thing I've been noticing too, running extremely high. Not saying that can't keep going, but ultimately, I think we could still pull back down to the 339. Which I think is a possibility in the next couple of days. We've been doing some major selling on Wednesdays and Thursdays. We get the report and everything tomorrow towards the end of the day. I think we sell. To be honest, I'm going to be a bit surprised if we gap down, then kind of stay flat until we get the news. From that point, we might get a nice little push and then another gap down overnight to get that market digestion or report digestion on inflation. And then have a big turnaround on Friday. And then from that point, I could see us continuing running once all that is essentially out in the air, right? Once all the cards have been exposed at that point. But ultimately right now, but if he does come out and say it is, that they are going to start tapering, that is the biggest concern tomorrow, and why the market's just been stalling and acting extremely weird lately. I think at that point, it will be interesting. The market could sell off quickly and then turn right around and keep running as well. I think everything has been kind of just holding or saving face essentially based around inflation. Where are we with inflation? all the concerns around it. And I know there's a lot of other people that talk about it. It's inflation. It's not going to stop. It's transitory, right? It's temporary. Being said, it's all temporary. But right now, I think it's already made such a dramatic push, right? I just went over all the commodities, some of the banks, and realized that they are all starting to pull back, right? They are running extremely hot, massive moves over the past couple months. And something I wasn't even paying attention to until recently when I started noticing, I started to trade copper and realized that after earnings, one of the copper plays I was playing pulled back quite a bit. I think it might have been like a 7% move back. And then I started to kind of look at it. It never quite picked up steam again, and lumber and everything else started falling off around that same time. This was about a month ago. So again, everything is starting, and then now banks are starting to really pull back over the past couple of days, which leads me to believe that inflation is not as bad as it seems now. And banks are a big indicator of that if banks are running hot like they have been, that there's inflation. Now they're starting to cool off. Maybe the inflation isn't getting as bad. So something to keep in mind. And then you also have the bonds as well, which have starting to cool off a little bit here. So it'll be interesting to see, again, what happens tomorrow. Again, I don't have any major ones, any watch lists for tomorrow. Ultimately, I think if things are good, I think it's great to jump into growth leaders if Powell continues the same song and dance he has been. If he has not, you could possibly even start looking at value stocks at that point. But I don't think anything is going to change. Again, that is my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. Right? This isn't financial advice. You should always think for yourself. I think that's always extremely important. But being said, the market itself is just in a weird state until we hear something from Powell. And again, maybe the market could be fine either way. At this point, I think the market could be fine either way Powell goes. I think either way we'll sell off after he essentially states what he's going to state, only because the market is trying to understand and digest what he is saying. And then from that point, we will still make a move. So ultimately, I think end of week, we'll have a good push up, but I think there's going to be a lot more selling before that happens. Again, I think everything growth, big tech and all that has been running pretty hot. They've made some amazing moves. And we have to realize that this isn't back early last year in the V recovery, right? When we were just going parabolic and we just run for days on end. We're starting to kind of normalize a little bit. So we only have like a day or two run up, a couple of days. But we have to realize that a lot of these things have been running for a couple of days and that they need a cool off point. And so I think we're starting to see that now. And tomorrow we'll definitely get the result of what has been going on. But that's essentially what I got for you guys today. I think, again, manage risk. Really watch tomorrow again at 2:00. We'll get the initial report. Then 2:30 Eastern Standard Time, we'll get Powell and any questions he may have for him in inflation and tapering talk. So just be mindful of that. Manage risk. And until next time, guys, I'll see you later.